Hello, and welcome back to my channel, Wysteria. This is a reading with commentary by the author. This is the second video. This actually is intended to be the commentary section of the regarding the first chapter. I first of all want to mention that I am working with rather antiquated equipment here. I do not own a smartphone. I have a flip phone. This is by choice. And I am using just a rather old point-and-shoot camera to film this. Because of that, the video and audio quality are not particularly wonderful. I don't care about the video quality, frankly. It's not that important that you see me any more clearly than you are. I did notice, however, in the first video that the audio quality was a little funny. The volume seemed to rise and fall a little bit. I'm not sure what the issue is. I did happen to put on a wind noise option on the camera yesterday when I was filming the first chapter reading. It was very windy outside, and even though again I was indoors, it was still making quite a bit of noise, and I thought that that might help. Frankly, I don't really know what I'm doing with that, so I tried it. That may have been the reason. There may have been some kind of a compression, audio compression that affected that. It could be just the video editing program that I was using, some kind of an audio compression there. It could just be the way this camera is recording. I hope to be getting a little better equipment, but for now you're just going to have to bear with me. If it does turn out that that setting, which I have changed on the camera now, makes the audio quality more consistent, it's possible that I'll go back and redo the first chapter. Frankly, I doubt that's going to happen. This is a very lengthy project. It takes me a while to go through these episodes, so I will probably just move forward. The other issue I have with my equipment is the recording time. This particular setting, which is not the highest resolution setting, I only have about 25 minutes before the camera will shut off. In fact, the first episode that I did, the camera shut off just when I'd finished the actual reading, which was good, but before I had completed the commentary. So I just clipped that off, and I know that I can stitch videos together, but I will probably stay with about this amount of time for each video. I think that's probably 20-25 minutes is probably good enough, both for you and for me. So probably the commentaries will be loaded on a separate video. Some of the chapters are going to be longer than the 25-minute time limit here. I may end up trying to stitch together several videos. I may, however, just break it into separate videos and have, chapter whatever, part 1, 2, 3, if necessary. Since I haven't had the first video on for any amount of time, not enough time for anybody to ask questions or add some comments, I won't be addressing those in this video. I hope in the future that we can have some discussions, answer some questions, talk about what other people may have said they've experienced in their own lucid dreams. But as far as this video goes, we'll just be dealing with a few remarks. As I mentioned, excuse me, the novel was inspired by my own experiences with lucid dreaming. I hesitate to say based on my experience because that makes it sound as if the bulk of the story is actually autobiographical. I don't want to go into, I've had many people ask me these questions, and I don't want to go into a point by point what is true, as far as being my own experiences, what is semi-true, and what is just a complete fiction that's just made up to carry the story along. I think that would be distracting for the reader or listener if they're trying to figure out what is true and what is not. I think that it's better just to take the story as it's being told. But I will give you a brief account of my first experiences with lucid dreaming. Because there are some similarities, strong similarities, between what Will experienced, particularly in the first chapter, and what I experienced. Just to reiterate, lucid dreaming is the phenomenon of being aware, fully aware, with your waking mind, that you are dreaming. I've heard some medical/scientific people say that this is impossible, that the brain will automatically shut down the waking mind when it goes into dream mode, and vice versa, I suppose. But it is a true thing. I've had the experience. I've been witness to a dream scene and been fully aware with my conscious waking mind that this was all just a dream that I'm looking at. Excuse me, years ago, actually decades ago, I was reading the Carlos Castaneda books, and particularly loved the ones that dealt with the issue of lucid dreaming. Although I had never had any lucid dreams, and it was years and maybe even a decade or two later that I had my first lucid dream experience. I was actually in Japan at the time. My ex-wife, my wife at the time, was living in Japan for a year, and I was over there visiting her. And maybe it was just the change of surroundings, maybe my sleep habits, eating habits might have influenced it, but I had several lucid dreams consecutive nights. Since that time, I've had several others. It's not something that happens to me regularly, unfortunately. I do know people who say they have lucid dreams virtually every night. I'm very envious of those people because just having the one experience, if it's all I'd had is the one initial experience, to call it life-changing might be a little strong, but it definitely altered my thinking just about reality, because there are some interesting implications involved with the experience. So, anyways, my first experience, I went to sleep, I lay down in bed, went to sleep, and the next thing I knew, I saw black, which then started to fade into a scene. I was standing in the driveway of a house I used to live in when I was in college. I was looking out across the lawn at the neighbors' houses, and I was dumbstruck. I immediately knew that I was dreaming. I knew that I was actually asleep, that my physical body was asleep in bed, and that none of the things that I was seeing were real. I expected to wake up. I immediately felt very anxious because I thought, oh no, I'm going to wake up. But I didn't. I kept staring at the scene in front of me, just amazed that it wasn't evaporating. And after I got over the shock, I started thinking, well, if I'm not going to wake up, I should take advantage of this situation. I should do something. I thought, well, what should I do? What should I do? And I remembered from one of the Carlos Castaneda books an exercise that was suggested to try to bring together the waking self and the dream self, as he put it, the exercise is to plan something while you're awake to do when you're dreaming. And if in your dream you can remember to do something that your conscious waking mind planned ahead of time, that would help link these two parts of you. Could be anything. Jump off a building, pet a cat, climb a tree. The issue is, at least for me, excuse me, you don't always have control over your environment, and so there may not be a cat or a tree or a tall building to jump off of. So the suggestion was something as simple as to look at your hands, because your hands should always be with you no matter what the dream setting is. So after saying, what should I do, I thought, I know, look at my hands. So I was able to remember something that my waking mind had considered ahead of time, even though it had been, many years, as I said, decades probably since I even thought about this. So I did. I looked down at my hands, and it was again, another kind of shocking experience, because they were my hands that I saw. I mean, they looked like my hands. They felt like my hands. I could see, all the lines on my palms, the fingerprints, on my fingertips. Turn my hands over, I could see little scars that I knew were there. I squeezed my hands together and could feel they felt like hands. So that was sort of the first sort of shock, or I guess the second shock I had. And while I was still standing there, I was still trying to figure out, well, now what should I do? Suddenly my, check the time, make sure I'm not going to run out. My mother, or appeared to be my mother, emerged from the house and said, "Oh, welcome back," as if I had been gone for a long time on some vacation. I remember staring at her thinking, oh my God, this is not real, but boy, this sure looks like my mother. She then said, well, here's somebody who I'm sure you're looking forward to seeing, and some woman, young woman, very pretty woman, short blonde hair, somebody that I've never seen before, at least not that I can remember. It wasn't somebody that reminded me of somebody. She immediately smiled, walked up to me, and put her arms around me. And I remember feeling her arms wrap around my back. I could feel the warmth of her body with her chest against mine. I was shocked again. I then put my arms around her and hugged her, and again could feel her body just as if it were a real person in the real world. From that point, I got into a car. Actually, it was a little white pickup truck, which I never owned or had any interest in owning. We drove off. We did a number of things after that, and finally, at a certain point, I did wake up. My vision started blurring. I realized what was happening, and it all went black, and I then immediately sat up in bed, quite amazed at what had just happened. It was, as I said, perhaps not a life-changing experience, but it was probably the most incredible experience I've ever had in my life. I mean, it was just amazing. It would be as if you just were, could step into a movie and, be aware that this was just a movie, but actually be physically inside the events of the movie. It's very difficult to describe, but you use your imagination, you might be able to see how crazy it would be. The second night, or the second dream I had, was the next night, and that experience, I woke up into a dream. It was much like the environment Will wakes up into. It was a little medieval city, or at least a street in a city, very narrow cobblestones, sort of brown sandstone walls lining both sides of the street. Ran into a couple people that I interacted with. So the Will's experience is sort of a combination of a couple of different dreams that I had. I then, subsequent nights, I had a couple more of these. And then there was a gap, although of actually probably a year or two before I actually had another couple of these dreams, which perhaps in some future episodes I'll discuss. Let me see, was there anything else I wanted to say today? I don't think so. I think later this afternoon I will go ahead and record the second chapter. Again, if you find these interesting, please like and subscribe, and I will be trying to do these as often as possible, so sign up to get notifications so you know when the next episode will appear. And I think that's all for this afternoon. Have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon.